The Bay feels different today. There's a real shift in the air, the kind that changes a locker room and changes how the rest of the league looks at Santa Clara. And at the same time, there's that quiet tension you can't fake, because when you start tweaking the details, you're really messing with the ceiling of the whole team. I'm going to walk you through why one behind-the-scenes move could flip the defense's personality, why a big-name receiver is being floated as a possibility, how a small special teams decision can swing tight games, and why a familiar offensive mind landing inside the division matters more than people want to admit. So tell me, do you want safety or do you want bold? Hit the like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with what you'd prioritize right now, faithful. The defensive room just got heavier, and I don't mean another assistant on a bio. The word is the 49ers are bringing in Jerry Gray for a key role on the defensive staff. And when you add someone who's been around the league for decades, who's coordinated defenses, coached defensive backs across multiple stops, you're not paying for a resume to look pretty. You're paying for answers in real time when an offense keeps testing you with the same concept over and over. Here's the impact, and it's simple. This defense lives on details. Alignment, eyes, communication on the switch, tackling angles, and most of all, how you disguise coverage without tipping your hand before the snap. Gray has the kind of experience that comes from watching every offensive trend rise, peak, and get countered. And there's another layer that matters. He reunites with Raheem Morris, a coach he worked with in Atlanta. That usually speeds up the install because it's not teach from scratch. It's speaking the same language and getting straight to the adjustments. Now let's get into the debate that splits the Niner gang. Do you want a younger staff full of new school ideas? Or do you want a seasoned voice who keeps the floor high when things get messy? Vote in the comments, experience or innovation? Because both come with a cost. Experience can mean less flash, more structure. Innovation can mean a blown coverage in September that costs you a game you'll feel in January. If it hits the right way, the upside is obvious. Gray helps tighten the secondary. The coverage and pass rush start working together like a single machine, and the defense gets back to being that unit that wins games when the offense is stuck in mud. You see more third and long stops, more quarterbacks holding the ball a beat too long. And in the NFL, half a second is the difference between a throwaway and a strip sack. But the caution side is real too. When you stack too many strong voices in one room, you better make the identity crystal clear. Players can tell when the message shifts week to week, and hesitation is a touchdown for the other team. So yeah, this hire feels like a signal. The staff is serious about re-establishing dominance. And it also hints at something bigger, because if you're building a defense that can win tight games, you better know what kind of offense you're pairing it with. Be honest for a second. When you look at the receiver room right now, it's not just about talent. It's about certainty. Certainty about who's on the field in the biggest moments. Certainty about who the defense has to circle on the call sheet. Because when a coordinator builds a plan, the first question is always the same. Who's the guy we can't let beat us? And right now, that answer doesn't feel as clean as it used to. That's why the conversation around Mike Evans won't go away. Nothing is confirmed, no deal, no handshake. But it's being floated as a real possibility if he hits the market and is looking for a contender. And let's not pretend the name doesn't carry weight, even with the age factor. Even with a recent injury-limited season. A player like that changes the way defenses line up before the ball is even snapped. The impact would be immediate, both on the field and inside the building. Evans isn't just a stat line. He's the kind of receiver who forces a safety to think twice before creeping into the box. He creates space without touching the ball. He brings a veteran standard, and he takes pressure off younger guys who are still learning a complex offense. That matters if you're trying to stay dangerous while the room is in flux. Now here's the real dilemma. If you were the GM, what's your move? Pay for a veteran who can give you an instant red zone threat and third down reliability? Or invest in someone younger and bet on development? That's the comment prompt. If you're running the front office, are you paying for the present or building for the next 2 years? Because both paths have risk. The vet may not look like his peak. The young guy may take too long to catch up to the system. If Evans lands in Santa Clara, the offense gains a calm kind of confidence. Third down gets easier, the red zone gets more surgical, and that feeling of somebody can just go win comes back to Levi's Stadium. But if you pass and lean into youth and speed, Maybe you get more long-term explosiveness, more chunk plays over time, while accepting the short-term inconsistency that can show up at the worst moments. And that's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't just a receiver conversation, it's a philosophy conversation. Do you protect the window you have right now, or do you keep building the next version of it? Think about that for a second, because the next decision is the type people ignore until it bites them. Everybody thinks specialist talk is noise, right up until a game becomes a field position fight. The clock gets tight, and you lose invisible yards that turn into 3 points for the other side. Then suddenly, nobody wants to admit they brushed it off in February. Here's the twist. This isn't only about punting the ball. It's about controlling the margin while the defense installs new wrinkles. The fact is, there's an expectation Raheem Morris brings his own stamp to this defense in 2026, and in that context, a familiar name is being brought up. Punter Bradley Pinion. He started his career with the 49ers back in 2015, left in 2019, and now could be available at the same time the team's punting situation is unsettled. And this is where I'm being careful with the wording. Thomas Morstead was the punter last season, and he's a free agent now. So this isn't the current guy is locked in. It's a real off-season decision point. The impact is practical. A steady punter changes the way your defense starts drives. You flip the field, you force longer possessions, you increase the chance of mistakes. And if the defense is learning new communication rules and new disguises, giving them more room to operate is a hidden advantage. So let me ask it this way. Does this kind of move make you feel confident because it shows attention to detail? Or does it worry you because it feels like patchwork instead of attacking bigger needs? Drop it in the comments. Does it calm you down? Or does it raise your eyebrows? If Pinion comes back and it clicks, you stabilize a spot that decides close games. If the team brings Morstead back on another short deal, you're betting on age and consistency holding steady. And look, punters can play longer than running backs, sure, but when it slips fast. One bad punt at the wrong time can swing a whole Sunday. This is the kind of decision that tells you how badly the staff wants to control variables, because there's one variable you can't control that just shifted inside the division. If this prediction plays out exactly the way it sounds, the damage won't show up in week 1 on the scoreboard. It'll show up when you realize the other side knows how you think. Brian Fleury is headed to the Seattle Seahawks to be their offensive coordinator. And that's not just a staff move. That's a mind that lived inside your building, helped shape weekly game plans, and was one of the voices involved in the in-game process that keeps an offense from drifting when the defense adjusts. The fact is straightforward. Fleury has been with the organization since 2019, moved across roles, coached tight ends, carried run-game coordinator responsibilities, and was part of the offensive identity you've watched evolve. Seattle didn't grab a stranger. They grabbed someone who knows the little preferences, what you like in certain down and distance situations, how your run game is structured, how your pass concepts are married to it. The impact is double. 1. You lose internal continuity. You lose someone who understood the why, not just the what. 2. You're strengthening a direct rival. Division games aren't just games. They're tiebreakers. They're playoff positioning. They're the difference between a home playoff run and a road grind. So here's the priority question for you. What's the biggest urgency now? Replace Fleury fast to keep the offensive chemistry intact? Or use this moment to modernize pieces of the system and evolve? Because replacing quickly gives you stability. Reinventing might raise the ceiling, or it might create noise when you can't afford noise. Best case scenario, the 49ers respond immediately with a hire that fits Shanahan's world. The flow stays strong, and the offense keeps moving forward. Sometimes losing a piece forces you to innovate in a good way. Worst case scenario, there's a gap that takes too long to fill. Communication takes time, trust takes time, and while that's happening, Seattle gets a head start in anticipating tendencies. Let me say this plainly. Some of the most important battles of the season start months before kickoff. And what's happening right now shapes who walks into those division matchups with the mental edge. When you put all of this together, the picture is clear. And it's a little uncomfortable. A seasoned defensive mind arrives to reinforce the spine of the defense. A major receiver name is being floated as a possibility to change the respect level of the offense. A quiet special teams decision could protect you in the tight games that define a season. And at the same time, a familiar offensive brain is now working against you inside the NFC West. Remember the question from the top. Safety or bold? Maybe the right answer is a ruthless balance of both. Now you tell me, which move changes the fate of 2026 the most? Comment it, hit like, and subscribe if you ride with the faithful.